Well, Fulham have an awful record against Chelsea with only one win in 28 Premier League games against them in the competition.
After another good draw in midweek, Scott Parker's side are on the up though, and Frank Lampard's team are struggling to find form. Let's hear from both managers ahead of this one.
Well, it's a good time for us to be playing any team, to be quite honest with you. I feel like that. I feel we're in a good place. I feel like confidence is high in the squad. I feel like there's a group of players here that are starting to feel their worth in this division, really. So, look, a tough game against an exceptionally good team in Chelsea and Frank's team. But in saying that, we're in a good place. And on Saturday, we'll go and give them a game and hopefully try and get something out of it. We approach every game like that. And no matter what the challenge and the task we face, it's always one which we're looking to try and put our stamp on the game.
It is an exciting fixture, and I always felt it had an extra edge to it, as I think the squad that I played in did. A different relationship to some derbies. Fulham at that time was sometimes in the Premier League, sometimes not, but whenever they came they really had a feeling of wanting to beat us and get one up on us. So yeah, without fans obviously takes a slight edge off these things, but mentally I think as players and as a club we should certainly retain that passion of what this game means. When you've had a few games where you don't win, it's clear that the players need to stay positive, and that starts from the staff. So I've seen good reactions in those terms. The players have worked hard. We've had 2 pretty long weeks, which is the first time this season we've had a chance to work in training on bigger elements of our game. So that's been one positive out of the last 2 weeks, and now the players need to show that.
Well, Chelsea come into this tie 9th in the Premier League table, and they've lost 4 of their last 6 Premier League matches, Glenn. How much pressure is Frank Lampard under?
Well, he's under pressure because of it's Frank, and it's Chelsea, and he's back, and Abramovich and all that. The money, I think the pressure is from the money that was spent in the summer. He went through an embargo, and it was like a little bit of a crutch to lean on in many ways for Frank when he first went to Chelsea. Now that's out the window. They've been given money. Probably the money's been spent in the similar area of the pitch in many ways. I think it might have been balanced through the pitch. I'm not sure whether someone like Havertz, for instance, would have been on Frank's #1 list as a player for the shaping up of the squad, for instance. But it is what it is. He's got immense talent to work with there at Chelsea. I do believe that it's a case of they're a side that need to play with confidence. They've lost a bit of confidence. There's a bit of self-doubt. Werner's stopped scoring goals. That could turn around very quickly. And if he starts scoring again, and you've got goals in Chelsea, the opposite to what we were saying about maybe Wolves and West Brom a minute ago, you can see them scoring 2 or 3 goals. But they went through a little spell as well when they actually were getting clean sheets as well. So I think they can come back to that. I really do think they can get themselves back on the horse.
Why do you think he's struggling to score then, Glenn? What is it about?
I don't know. I think it may.
Is it service? Is it confidence?
It goes through this. He did this in Germany, He goes through these little spells, but what the good sign is for Chelsea fans, he comes out the back end. And that is all about, if that goes in, for instance, that one that's hit the bar, he's a striker that is missing chances at the moment. That can soon turn. If you're a striker that's not creating anything, or nothing's being created for you, you've got a problem. But I think 1 goal in 1 game, and it might be this weekend, that could turn. He'll go on a run, and he could score 6 or 7 back to back. And I think that will change Chelsea's season in many ways.
Just before I come to Miguel on this, as a manager, they've brought all those players in the same end of the pitch. Frank managed at Derby, got to the playoffs. Last season was remarkable. No players in, lost his, and got to the Champions League. Does his inexperience as a manager in relative terms, in terms of all those players, big players, keeping them happy, how difficult is that for a manager?
Yeah. That is always a problem. It is always a problem.
Does he know his best team because of that?
No, that's the problem. He's trying to maybe rotate, but I always question rotation. Is it rotate, or is it trying to keep every player happy? Mm-hmm. You've got to get a spine of the team. You've really got to get a spine of the team that doesn't move unless there's injury, unless there is fatigue comes into it, and you do have to.
So that's key. That spine.
That is so key. Whatever the key players are, keep them in that position. And if it means keeping Reece James in, for instance, he might have had an injury, and Aspilicueta has to sit out, But at the moment, I'm seeing things change for the sake of being changed. But keep him in if that's a player. Just giving you an example. If that was one of your players that you'd want to keep in, you know, the spine of the team doesn't always have to run through the middle of the pitch. It can be whatever positions. But keep them key players that you know you want in your side, and then build round it, then rotate round it. I just see too many changes at Chelsea at the moment.
How much pressure is Frank under, Miguel?
A bit. I mean, Chelsea aren't quite as trigger happy as perception from Abramovich's early years indicates. I mean, obviously everyone associates them, I suppose, with getting rid of Ranieri in their first season. But to be fair, in the last few years, they've always given managers a little bit more time than's been expected. With Mourinho in 15-16, he didn't move on that until quite late. With Conte, I remember Conte, even in February that second season, he got beaten 3-0 by Watford. He still didn't move until the end of the season. Same with Sarri after when they conceded 6 at Man City. So he does have a bit of space, but it's more about he also knows that if this doesn't improve anytime soon, then they could act at the end of the season, I'd say, which is more likely.
Do we think that because he's not there as much, he's not hands-on as much, is he? He's not being at the games this season.
Abramovich, you mean?
Yeah, Abramovich. Yeah. Does that help Frank, or do you think it will hinder him a little bit? The fact that he's not actually seeing and getting a feel for it. You know, you can watch it on the tape or later on, 2 days later. It's not the same, is it, for him? So I think that might come into it a little bit. Might give Frank a little bit more of a chance.
Yeah, and you don't have the presence of Abramovich there all the time either. And like these days, so much of the club is run through Marina Granovskaya, who's basically kind of the woman Abramovich trusts more than anyone else at the club, or in his whole empire almost. And she's been responsible, or at least hugely influential, in a lot of key decisions over the last few years. And I think she's been, like in the Mourinho season, she was the one that was insisting, let's give him more time to see how it plays out. So I don't think there'll be any snap decisions. But again, it's got to improve soon.
The problem is in a club like Chelsea, well, any club nowadays, it's modern football, it's the whispers. It's the whispers behind the scenes that maybe key players, if they're not playing enough, like you alluded to, Rob, they're leaking things into people that then go to the owner, and that goes to him, and then he gets an impression. Instead of being there himself and hearing them whispers himself and seeing the players and being with the players, he hasn't had that this year. And I think that's going to be maybe a slight problem in some ways for Frank overall.
On that, exactly. Abramovich used to literally go into the dressing room and speak to Cech, Ivanovic, and that kind of little core. And obviously that doesn't happen now.
Somebody else is feeding whatever somebody else is telling them. And that can be dangerous. It can really be dangerous for a manager.
And this presents quite a tricky fixture for Chelsea this weekend. Not only is it a West London derby, but Fulham have really found their form lately. They were so impressive coming back against Tottenham in the week to get a draw, and they could have won that game, Glenn.
They've been playing with so much confidence, and they've been playing well. And as Scotty just said there, they're going into this game with a lot of confidence. I felt as if this might be a little bit of a surprise here or two, until, Jules, you actually said that they hadn't beaten Chelsea for 27 games or whatever it was.
Those records are there to be broken, Glenn.
Exactly, they are. But and going into this game, you sense that if they're ever going to get a win, it could be this week. It could be this weekend, because they're playing with a lot of confidence for them.
Miguel, do you give Scott Parker credit? Because we see managers, Norwich last year, they come up and played this style of football and they went down. We see Brighton under Graham Potter, they play more expansive football, and they're in the relegation battle. Scott Parker, start of the season, everybody said Fulham, they're going to be down. They're going to go down. They concede too many goals, but he's changed. Yeah. Do you give Scott Parker a lot of credit for that? Because he's thought, I'm going to change the way we play, because if we continue like this, we're going to get relegated.
Oh, hugely. I think to his credit, how adaptable he's been. Also, how adaptable the team is in individual games. I mean, I've seen him twice now in the last one. Once was that 1-1 draw against Liverpool, and then on Wednesday night, the 1-1 draw away to Spurs. And in both games, they gave these two big six sides as many problems in attack as they were given themselves. There's a real kind of element of danger there. On Wednesday, I thought Ruben Loftus-Cheek was the best player on the pitch. He ran the game. Then in Luke, when they've got kind of this, these individual moments of brilliance, there's a resolve to them, but also a bit of spark.
How hard is it to change as a manager? Because we see some managers won't, because this is the way we play. Eddie Howe and Bournemouth, for 5 years, was it 5 years in the Premier League? Brilliant, expansive. We look at other sides, Sheffield United, Chris Wilder last year, incredible the way they play. Similar this season. How hard is it for a manager to think this isn't working? I've got to change.
You've got to be flexible.
But some won't, Glenn, will they?
No, I think Brighton have got that problem. If Graham Potter doesn't change his way, we spoke about that in the week. If he just doesn't, tighten up a little bit, play slightly different, a little bit tighter, they're easy to play against, Brighton. Fulham are not easy to play against. And what Fulham have done, they've not gone one way or the other. They've not said, we're going to get everyone behind the ball, just defend. They've got the balance right. They defend at times in a 4 and then slip into a 3, so they actually then get extra players in midfield. They've done it very shrewdly and they've done it excitingly, because you're right, actually, Miguel. They're a team that can go toe-to-toe in periods during a game now. And they feel that. They've got that confidence. They can go to a good side and go, right, hang on, we're a good football team as well. I've seen them actually not get the points on the board. They should have won at West Ham. There's a few games I've seen. Liverpool at home, they were excellent. They should have been 3 or 4 up. It was their own fault they weren't, because they didn't take the chances. So you do that to them sort of teams and go to Tottenham and go toe-to-toe. They should have won the game at Tottenham. You've got something to... I think Fulham will get out of trouble.
Yeah. Just on that, actually, I'd be interested in Glenn's opinion on this. I mean, the last few years of top-level football, it's basically been kind of dominated by philosophy clubs, what Guardiola does, what Klopp does. They put something in the club, really instead of... But I suppose that requires a lot of training time, which is something that's been denied this season, where there's not the same space to kind of drill teams, and you have to be more adaptable. Will that favour managers like Parker in that circumstance, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I think it's easier. City's a good example, an easy example, because of the talent that they've got and the money that they've spent to play Pep's way, and that's the Barcelona way, and that's right. I think that's why I think Scotty does need, does need to be praised a hell of a lot. They might still go down. I don't think they will, but I think he's changed the system, and the players are still playing with a little bit of a spring in their step. They're enjoying the way they play. It's sometimes a manager goes, right, we're just going to do that, and every day is a bore. It's like defend. We're going to do this and do that. I saw Palace last year at games like that. No disrespect, they've opened up a little bit more this season. Obviously West Brom over the years. Certain
Newcastle this season.
Yeah, Newcastle to a degree sometimes. And it's like the players are frustrated. They've got chains on. They're not playing. But Scotty's allowing the players to play, but he's organised defensively. So he's had that. He's done a fantastic job, as you say, in that short periods of time. That only happens on the training ground to prepare your team. And that's what he was moaning about the other day when the fixture was put in too quickly.
Just very quick, there's a great question. You should try being a journalist, Miguel. That might go then, alluding to Miguel's question, against Big Sam, because that work on the training pitch with Big Sam to keep them up is going to be limited. Yeah,
it's going to be limited. They're out of the cup, so he'll look at that. You're out of the cup, so you've got a week. You've got a week there where you can prepare your team. So there's things like that on the training ground that can make a big change, and the players have then got to go out and do it on the pitch.
All right, well, we'll get your predictions for Fulham-Chelsea a bit later on, guys. We've got to talk about another match now. Leicester against Southampton, 2 impressive managers